Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 103rd episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Hagerty. You can find my work at joehagerty.substack.com. Subscribe to a premium membership at Substack and get all of my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns weekly, 3 of them, every week for the Boston Sports Journal. So go to bostonsportsjournal.com to check out all my writing there about the Boston Bruins. With me today, I have my longtime friend and colleague, Mick Colageo, who is out in Las Vegas for the NHL draft, getting up bright and early to do this podcast. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work.
When I'm done doing it, it'll be on my blog, rinkwrapmc.com, which I link to on X, and also bostonhockeynow.com, where I do a Sunday column. And soon I'll have a deadline for the hockey news where we'll be doing the future watch, kind of like the organizational reset in the wake of UFA and the draft, et cetera. I'll have to have that in shortly.
That'll be fun. Can't wait to see that. And I'm sure the prospect list for the Boston Bruins will be interesting in the future watch as well. All right, Mick, you were there for Don Sweeney yesterday?
Yeah.
Give me the rundown, my friend. What were your takeaways from Don Sweeney's press availability?
That Danton Heinen is the only UFA who is not being treated on a very back burner basis. He has held conversation with Heinen's agent, and he is not guaranteeing, though, that Heinen won't go to market. I guess it came up on social last night or this morning that DeBrusk is confirmed he's going to market. And the Bruins, we all
knew that for a long time.
Hell yeah. So the rest of these UFAs, many whom, from the group that was gathered last year to make up an NHL team and hope for the best, have been told that they've been advised that what the Bruins stance is, which is, hey, look, if we talk to you, we're not talking to you until the dust settles. So That's how I would characterize the million words that were spoken yesterday with the many questions that were asked. I was more keyed on Korpisalo and talking about, because the narrative is out there. I mean, let's face it, the fans wanted him around here about as long as Martin Jones was around here. And if you look at you go back a year and he joins the Kings at the deadline. Now he loses in the playoffs. He's their 6-game starter against the Edmonton Oilers. They lose in 6. He gets 2 wins, and some of the 4 games that he lost were ugly. So his stats are not good. His stats were very much like his Ottawa stats from this past season when he won 21 games. Right. But those are the kind of numbers that get you kicked out of the league. They might have been commonplace in 1976, but they're not NHL numbers now. But if you look at the 11 games he played for the Kings at the 23 deadline, he went 7-3-1. I think it was a 2.13 GAA and a 9.21 goals against. Save percentage. I'm sorry. So this guy's capable.
You could argue, Mick, that that's like the best team that he's played for in his NHL career, that LA Kings team. He's played for some bad Columbus teams.
I think it was on. His best hockey before that was the bubble tournament that the NHL calls Stanley Cup playoffs. I won't. In 2020, and he played very well in that. So there are situations in which he's delivered some really good hockey, and so my question to him was, are you looking at this the way you looked at Allmark, good goalie in a bad team, and you're going to bring him into a good environment, or is there a pair to his game? And he kind of acknowledged, but at the same time said that each guy's their own guy, and that but we do think that if you look at the whole body of work of his career, that this guy, we think there's a good goalie there.
Yeah, so. And you don't. You're not a terrible goalie if you get to almost 300 games in the NHL. Like, you just don't. You know what I mean? Like, he had a terrible year with the Ottawa Senators. Like, you can everybody wants to glom on to like fancy underlying stats that say that he was the worst goalie in the NHL last year, and maybe he was. He was,
but he also he might have been at the bottom of a toilet bowl. You know, I mean that might have you know that's really it's hard to look good when you're coated in crap.
I agree, but like it's also just the nature of goaltending. It's running backs in football. It's relief pitchers in baseball. It's very erratic from year to year. You can't take 1 year that a goalie had in the NHL and say this guy's trash just based on 1 year, because it's so erratic, bouncing back and forth for goalies like those other positions I mentioned.
Not if they don't play in a positive environment. I will agree that there's still an element where a goalie can spike a hockey team. However, goalies are much more so in today's game the byproduct of the team in front of them than they are the other way around.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. But there's also individual performance. I think that's why there's less value for goalies in trades and other things than other positions, is because I think there's an erratic, volatile nature to that position where it's kind of
like coaching,
and it can go back and forth. Where for whatever reason, maybe it's an injury, maybe it's a technique thing, maybe it's a confidence thing. There's a lot of different things at play.
And it's a chemistry thing.
Yes, but you see a lot more volatility with that position than you do with others. And I think there's reasons for that, you know, and I think that is something that everybody that is hypercritical of this trade is totally overlooking. Like, I think it's fair to criticize it to a degree, that they're taking on 4 years at $3 million and overpaying a backup goalie. Do I think it's a huge overpay for a guy that's an established NHL backup goalie? No, I don't, because you'd probably have to pay him like a couple million anyway. So maybe they're paying like an extra million more than they would have otherwise. But if they were when they brought in a guy like Halak, they paid him pretty handsomely.
That's a good now maybe that's the comparable. Yes, that might be the comparable.
And I think, Leo, more so than Allmark, that might have been the one that Sweeney's probably thinking about when he brought him in. Is the Halak one?
Yeah, Tuukka was a lot further along in his career than Swayman is now, but you have this similar dynamic. You wanted a good number two who's going to push your number one and be a meaningful backup and keep internal competition going. And if things don't go well, then maybe, then there's an opening for Brandon Bussey. But right now, their plan is let's get this guy in the best situation we can and plan on him being a good goalie for us. That's the way they're thinking it.
Yeah. And I suspect that they like having – I know the Bruins traditionally, they like having an experienced backup goalie. I think it scares them to some degree to have a young guy that doesn't have any NHL experience.
I'm not a big fan of backups who are developing goalies.
Right. I don't think the Bruins are either. That's my point, is I just don't think they like it, especially behind a guy in Swayman who has never played 60 games, has never been a number one, has never dealt with the pressure he's going to deal with once he signs the big contract. Like, there's a lot of unknowns for the goaltending situation going into next year. And I think having a guy like Korpisalo around allows them to hedge their bets to a degree. But I'll continue to go back to the same thing, Mick. You do not log almost 300 NHL games. You do not get 7, 8, 9 years in the NHL as a goalie unless you are good. Everybody wants to slag Korpisalo and crush him for last year. You do not remain in the NHL for as long as he has and go from, his fourth different team now, unless you are good. If you are a bad goalie, you will be out of the league very quickly because there's so many other goalies out there and so many other candidates and so many other places you can go for goaltending. So, it's so short-sighted and it's such a, fancy stat geek thing to do. These people that are jumping on Korpisalo and crushing the Bruins for what they did just based on 1 year last year because they found some little kernel of stat that's going to be juicy that everybody's going to run with and want to throw it out there.
What are they doing over there?
But he's not nearly as bad as you make him out to be and as he is playing, which was, one of the worst teams in the NHL last year. Of course, goalies are going to look bad on one of the worst teams in the NHL and one of the worst defensive teams. And
they were a chaotic team too.
Yeah,
and they were and that's terrible for a goalie.
Well, other people were trying to make the comparison that the Bruins defense and the Ottawa defense was the same last year, which is hot garbage to me too. They're not even. Give me a break. I don't. That's just trying to fortify your stupid for initial stat with some other stupid stat. As far
I
as
love the stupid stat day.
oh, dude, the fancy the pocket protector fancy stat brigade drives me nuts. There's a place for it. There should be a mixture of that and the eyeball test. There should always be a mixture of the two things. But like, I can't get over when somebody puts up a bar graph on social media to tell me how awesome a line is playing when you can friggin' see it with your eyes. Like, I don't need a bar graph to get me excited about what I'm seeing on the ice when like a line is dominant out there. Tell me something I don't know. That is the most stupid, like, waste of time thing ever, is to show me pie graphs and bar graphs of things I'm watching on the ice that I can see with my naked eyes. Tell me something I can't see.
I think the one that put me off the most was when, a keyboard warrior took issue with me when I made an opinion on a player and decided that what I was doing falls under a category that was labeled something about confirmation bias. So,
yes.
I'm thinking, okay, so as though I am philosophically doomed to a solipsism that I cannot escape because I'm wrapped up in my own brain and cannot function in the world or see the game through any kind of reliable prism. That might work like a good exercise for college kids in a philosophy class, but it doesn't meet the rubber on the road of living, of life, and the fact that we as human beings are even taking the statistical information and processing it. When I was in graduate seminary, it was quite an eye opener to how the many ways there are to read the Bible. That you can have this thing of, you learn a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and you start thinking you know something because you found out that this is got an inherent bias to it that's based on people looking at it through different prisms, and you bring your baggage with you and you decide that this means this because it has to fit in with everything else you think. And what you wind up with later is that at the end of the day, you almost make a full circle back to deciding that, yes, I have as a sensory being, I am capable of seeing what's happening in front of me and interacting with information to inform that and to interpret the information because I can, and it's not perfect. It never will be. And if it was all the same, none of us would ever be talking about this stuff. So, it'd be as absolute as your, as a price tag.
I agree. The problem becomes, Mick, that a lot of the people that spout the fancy stats stuff think all of that is perfect and think there's, it's this like. Well,
they're in that college mentality where you think know something, but you haven't been far enough up the mountain to get a view of the distance to the top.
Exactly, and you need to take all information into account before you're making. It's all
good information. It's like Don Tiano said. I like information. Give me all the information you got, but I like watching hockey games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why, like, the end of the day, like, that's why that's my bottom line is when I come full circle on this stuff. The end of the day is I got into hockey because I love the sport, because I love watching the sport, because I love everything about the sport. I did not get into hockey to look at bar graphs and pie graphs and all this other stupid crap. Like, that is not why I got involved in hockey. Like, there are so many people that like love math, love all that stuff. Like, that's great. But like at the end of the day, you have to ask them, do you actually love the game or do you just love that stuff? Is that like your bread and butter? Is that your thing? And you're just trying to force that and shoehorn that into hockey? Or do you actually love hockey too? Like, that's my question most of the time.
Right. Have you ever felt that? If you felt that ice under your skates and known that it was good ice or bad ice, hard ice or soft ice, and felt the puck nestle into your stick and release it back and see somebody else catch it and know that you threw them a good pass and that you feel that joy of the flow of the game and it's part of your life with hockey to play it. I'm not saying that, cancel out everybody who has never laced up skates or is a capable skater. That's not my point. My point is that experiencing anything at the most raw human levels is a huge part of understanding it. And these other spheres and prisms through which we look at it.
Absolutely. I agree. Let's also thank Game Time, your best place to get Red Sox tickets at Fenway this summer. And actually they're winning some games, so you probably do want to get Red Sox tickets at Fenway summer. Although, for me, I might use Game Time I saw yesterday that Journey and Def Leppard and Heart are going to be playing at Fenway Park in August. So I may use Game Time to go see that threesome, because I went and I saw Poison, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, and Joan Jett last year at Fenway, or it was 2 years ago. Wow. I can't remember. That was like one of the all-time great concerts. Def Leppard was unbelievable. I would definitely go. I mowed a lot of lawns in middle school with the Walkman playing Def Leppard in my ears, Evan, back in the day. Young Joe Hagerty was like 12, 11 years old. Game Time is a great place to get tickets for concerts, baseball, all that stuff right now. Seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Zone deals, you save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. This is just good stuff, so take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account, download the app, and redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I thought this was interesting, Mick. Don Sweeney yesterday, and I'll read this off. This was him talking about free agency and like what they're trying to do and their needs, what have you. He said, we'd like to deepen the middle of the ice with us. So that's where we've been focused and trying to have these talks with our group to say, okay, who should be the guy, and make hopefully the pitch at the right time that we can add a player of that nature. I think we continue to look to strengthen our back end, complement the group we have here. And then from there, it's sort of like how much of the pie is left. We just have to attack. I can't tell you that we're going to satisfy every need that our group had identified, or you might identify, but we are going to be aggressive to try to improve our hockey club. Like, all right. The center thing is been consistent and obvious, and I think we all recognize that they need to get a frontline center, and that'll allow them to sort of move some of the pieces around and maximize what they have and become more of a well-rounded club and address some of the weaknesses that they had last year. They need a frontline center. Elias Lindholm makes the most sense. I think everybody is linked the Bruins to him. I think they have the money to sign that kind of player, so I think that makes a lot of sense on every level. That's kind of the logical sort of off-season addition that you could see happening. My question is, why not a winger? Like, why not? Is that a priority? Why are you talking about defenseman instead of winger? I think you need more scoring, especially if Jake DeBrusk is leaving. How come you don't even mention that if you're Don Sweeney? Is it that far in the priority list where at the end of this you're going to be like, oh, we didn't have any of the pie left. Sorry, we couldn't get a winger. We're just going to add secondary scoring because we have enough primary scoring, which they don't because they averaged 2.38 goals in the playoffs. Clearly offense was an issue. Clearly putting the puck in the net was an issue. And it's going to be even more of an issue when Jake DeBrusk signs with Toronto or wherever the hell he's going to go for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that he's not going to get with the Bruins. So, like, what was your estimation, analysis, thoughts on that and when Sweeney was talking about the targets for free agency and sort of omitting the winger as an important part of that?
The one thing that he alluded to, and it was in rough response to my question about Pavel Zacha, that how do you see his development at this point, given the fact that you always had an eye for him being a left side versatile player that you could bring in and have him be a successor to the Bergeron-Krejci era, and he plays most of the season at center for you. But by the end of the season, he was getting moved around a bit.
Yeah.
And where you look at him right now, and he talked about the organizational's philosophy in trying to get versatile players, and that this is going to help them. That he took a big step this season. So I don't think they're done looking at him as a center, but at the same time, I think that they're looking at any player that they think can play wing who is a center. So yeah. I think that they look at, like, you remember 2010 Team Canada for the Vancouver Olympics and how they had eight centers in their top 11 forwards, and most of them play wing. because only 3 can play top 9 minutes at center. And they wound up, kicking the crap out of everybody. And that I think is the way Sweeney likes to envision. I think that's why he's ingratiated himself with Team Canada. I think they're philosophically aligned. And I think that any player he looks at is somebody he wants to be able to be at least a 3-tool player as a forward. Even Freddie was drafted with this in mind.
So you think
Monty says he's a winger. Well, so you think he was drafted as a center.
So you think it's purposeful them not going after somebody that would only play the wing? They basically want to go after centers and then potentially move them to wings when they get here. Is that
as a priority philosophy? Yes. As a I don't love that. Now let's say this at the same time. Let's know there that David Pastrnak, who now has almost a decade in the organization, he does have a decade in the organization. What am I talking about?
So he was drafted with the 25th overall pick 10 years ago, which the people out there that poo-poo the 25th pick as something that is not going to get the Bruins anything, all you have to do is point to David Pastrnak and say, look what they got 10 years ago with this exact pick. So, let's properly value a first-round pick because it will probably get you a very useful NHL player with some high ceiling.
So when the contract started coming up and Pasta's development was coming along but wasn't really in an all-world status yet, Sweeney famously texted Fluto Shinzawa and said, not trading Pastrnak. And everybody knew at that point that they're going to get a deal done. They're going to do something here. And so they finally did, and he's the highest paid Bruin in history, but he's a pure winger. Now, is he? He's a line driving winger, though, as Brad Marchand proved to be before him to become a line driver. As Bergeron aged, he needed Marchand to sort of take over that part of the job of the line and sort of become the complementary player on the line. And the player plays off of what the winger does. And that's become a popular position in hockey. The elbow winger, the Panarin, the Tarasenko, the Kucherov, the Patrick Kane. I mean, you get these guys who have become integral to the evolution of offense in modern day hockey. A lot of that has come out of that Patrick Kane kind of model and playmaking off the wing,
like a center, but they play on the wing.
That's right. That's right. So maybe Rick Middleton helped Barry Peterson as much as Peterson helped Middleton. And when they had that wonderful partnership 40 years ago. There's definitely some dynamics to that, but I think the Bruins historically, throughout their history, so help me Harry Sinden, strength down the middle. And if you can have a 200-foot center who's one of the best players on the ice, no matter which team has the puck and no matter where it is in the rink, then that's the best way to be a consistent winner and to build up toward cup contention from there with every other bell and whistle you can try to get together.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I get the philosophy, and I acknowledge that, and sort of like you can see.
Are you building up toward being mad at the Bruins for not going after Reinhart?
I mean, I don't look. Reading the tea leaves, I think Reinhart's going to sign back with Florida. I don't get any indication that he's going to go anywhere else. It sounds like he's going to take less to stay there. That he understands he's got a good thing going there and he wants to stay, and they'll figure out a way to work it out. So at this point, I don't even know, even if they've vastly overpaid for him or offered him something crazy, that he would go. And I think they probably know that. But like Jake Gunsel is probably going to be out there. He's probably a guy that you could get. And I think he would certainly fit in really well with this Bruins team, and he would be a great addition. And he's the kind of player that you could add to this and really, he would be effective and good right off the bat. I think they're overplaying what they have offensively. And it feels like to me, they're going to be comfortable going into the season with less than 6 top 6 forwards again, like they did last year. And somebody's going to be playing up there that does not belong. And it's going to be a problem offensively. We saw Danton Heinen play a lot of top 6 last year. We saw Morgan Geekie at times play top 6.
Top 6 center.
Yeah, I like both of those players, but I think they're both third line players at best. wouldn't like rank them as first or second line players when you're
If
looking
you
at
could
them.
picture them winning the Stanley Cup and putting on the ball caps, you know that they would be third liners.
Yes. So, and this seems to be a pattern now that we're seeing with Don Sweeney running the Boston Bruins, is where it seems like he's always operating one top six winger short of what they need, or he has in the last couple of years anyway. And certainly he did this last year. And I think
it's very Sinden-like, actually. It is. It's
that not being a priority, I feel like I have a problem with that. You know, I think you need to, especially with DeBrusk leaving, I think you need to replace him with an established guy that can put the puck in the net. If you're thinking that Fabian Lysell or Merkelov or one of these guys is going to come in and give you the offensive punch that you need, the speed, the playmaking, the skill that DeBrusk is leaving with out the door, I think you're just mistaken at this point. I don't see it. But you know, yeah, or Brazo, but Brazo's not like DeBrusk. You know, he's not a speed guy like DeBrusk. DeBrusk's speed is something they're going to miss when he's gone. His speed and his very high elite skill is something they're going to miss if they don't find a way to recreate or reproduce that.
I don't mind them moving on though, because I feel like at the end of the day, DeBrusk wants to play a Bobby Ryan type game. He wants to be invisible for 58 minutes, and then for 1 or 2 minutes, he wants to damage the game. He wants to fly down like a hawk, grab his prey, and scoot off. And where's my dog?
And he's going to be able to do that, Mick, when somebody signs him to a 6-7 year deal for massive money that he's going to get. Somebody's going to pay him a lot of money. And I like Jake DeBrusk as a person. I think he's a good kid. I like his family. I don't want Cindy to come after me on Twitter, his mom, and because if I say anything bad about him, like she did before. I think she's great. Like, I like Louis too. I like the whole family. I think he's a good kid. I just think once he gets that comfort of a long-term contract with a lot of money, I just think he's going to get really comfortable and he's going to settle into bad habits, and it's going to be a tough situation for the team that signs him, and it's going to be a tough situation for him feeling the pressure of trying to live up to that contract, because I think he's going to think about it a lot. And I also think he's just going to settle into bad habits once he's got the security. And I think the Bruins know that. I think that's why they're avoiding re-signing him and moving away. I think they can see what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, he's also an injury-prone player. When he plays the right way, yeah, he gets banged up. A bit like Matt Grzelcyk. You know, you get these guys who have just terrific speed, talent, fluidness to their game, beautiful hockey players, and then they get into the minefield of the most meaningful hockey of the year, and the bodies don't hold up for whatever reason. They weren't physically. The specimen wasn't up to the durability task, and it's not a matter of character; it's a matter of luck.
Now with Major League Baseball in full swing, with the Boston Red Sox actually doing okay, sort of fighting for a playoff spot. Certainly better than I think anybody would have expected going into this season. Now's a great time to use Prize Picks. If you're a Red Sox fan and if you're a baseball fan, with basketball and hockey having wrapped up, Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and pretty simple. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. I mean, where can you go wrong? You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every single week, from lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays, all kinds of good stuff going on right there. Prize Picks is also available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So if you want to get on board the Jarren Duran train with the Boston Red Sox and start loading up on his stats, Tristan Casas, when he comes back and starts hitting, all the Red Sox, if you want to get on board with them, Just get it done with Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match of up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Anything else, Mick, as far as Don Sweeney goes yesterday?
Let's see. You know, it's
Well, let
funny.
me ask you this.
We never talked about Four Nations, and that's how the day's going to start off today with all the Four Nations avails.
Well, the 25th pick. Have you looked into players at all that you think might be available? With that,
he said that it won't be about position.
Right.
He said it's going to be about what's on the board and what they think of the players that are there and the homework that they did on the players that they see. There's been a lot of speculation that the Bruins are looking to do, and he talked about, he acknowledged that, sure, we desire to do these things, to upgrade these things, but, when you're in the draft, it's an extremely dangerous game to try to look at positions. And the other thing that I had, this is a little off topic from that, but you asked about Sweeney. I asked him about the general team direction, and that while he is in a position of process and retooling the Bruins to get the most out of their younger emerging core of players, that they are not peeling back and tearing down. They're thinking we like what we've done so far, and it's a continuum for them. And I compared it over against what Bill Zito did 2 years ago when the Panthers won the President's Trophy and had a great 122-point season and lopped off a third of his team after they get swept in the second round by the Lightning.
Right.
Right. He just, and that was how he redid it. And Sweeney acknowledged that, but said, we just did something big too. We had a goalie tandem that was really important to our team, and we decided to break it up. So I don't want to say that we haven't done something significant when we just did. So he looks at the breakup of the goalie tandem as a pretty big, while it seems so we always knew it was going to happen because all the leverages were in place contractually and career stage wise, that it made perfect sense in the needs, that this had to happen. For him, it sounded like a monumental decision that really was stressful to make and to go forward with. And I guess when you're in those shoes, things that I take for granted and just think of like playing a card game, for him, it was a big, huge decision to trade Linus Ullmark.
Yeah, no, and he's like that a lot with the trades, especially with players that are their guys that they brought in. I remember him being about Ryan Lindgren when they traded him to the Rangers for Rick Nash. I remember him being very sort of forlorn about trading away one of their best defensemen prospects at the time, and a guy, frankly, that the Bruins could have used. Like they could use that kind of D-man and could have over the last 6, 7, 8 years after trading him to the Rangers. But yeah, I think he's like that a lot with players, with assets that they have to trade and have to move on from, even more so with guys that they drafted and developed. But like Ullmark was a guy they took a chance on and they were absolutely right on. And, I think they like those players when they bet on the horse and he comes in, and he performs for them. And Ullmark was a great Bruin when he was here, no question about it. So it's difficult to trade those guys. Now, would I put that on par with the Panthers trading for Matthew Tkachuk? No, I would not. I do not think it's the same level of franchise-changing move as trading away two of your biggest pieces and getting back a guy like that that's just like a spark plug catalyst, like, the center of everything that they've done the last couple of years. If you tell me Mark Kostelic is going to be that kind of guy for them, I don't think so. Like that. This is a different kind of trade. But they're definitely, taking risks, breaking up, like you said, what was the biggest strength of the team last year. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and maybe Kostelic is going to be another guy who's going to strengthen their bottom six here. And
I think he will.
And obviously his face-off ability is going to help.
Yep.
It's a
He's
right
physical,
shot. Well, that's to me is the biggest part of it, because as long as you can't get the big name tickets that you think are going to change your trajectory, then the one thing you can do is trend your team in a direction that it needs to go. That, you know,
Yep.
he always considers it. Every time I ask him about this, he acknowledges that it's a good way for your team to be, and we're always looking for those opportunities. But there's a disconnect in the question answer between my assessment of the Bruins is desperately needing to upgrade this area, and his every step of the way we want that, it's good to have kind of an attitude that that we don't seem to ever reach the point at which we disagree about where the Bruins are.
But actions speak louder than words, Mick. And the last few years, they've added, when they get a chance to add, more of those players, which tells you that they've recognized that they need more of that. And
Cam is more open about it. And I think that they tend to nibble around the edges of it with role players. But I think until it infiltrates their top six and their forecheck from soup to nuts, then it's always going to be an issue come playoff time.
I agree. Tweet of the week, Kip Wingirter. Here are two cap-friendly players that would help the Boston Bruins immensely: Chandler Stevenson and Nikita Zadorov. Please go out and get these two players. Go Bruins. Your thoughts, Mick?
Well, if you don't get Lindholm, then to me, Chandler Stevenson is he had a very good playoff for the Golden Knights when they won the Cup.
Yep.
And so, where is he at?
Won one in Washington too.
Right, and then he was a lower depth there. He was playing a third. They were very strong down the middle that year because Kuznetsov finally became a playoff performer instead of a disappearing act. Backstrom was always there, but Kuznetsov joined the party and they got over the hump. And but Chandler Stevenson was complimentary, and then he was elevated in the situation in Vegas and performed well. So to me, he's another viable candidate here to play a role for them there. I don't know who's the right guy here, but either one of those guys are very intriguing to me. Those are the top two on my mind to fill that role. I do have a technical doubt about this podcast from my end. I'm getting little pop-ups that tell me that I stopped recording.
You did.
You're still what?
You did. You didn't stop recording, Mick. Just ignore it. Power through.
Okay. I officially ignore you.
Okay. Brady Shay is another name I think that a lot of people have linked to the Bruins that I would expect July 1. When Don Sweeney mentions defense and wanting to add defense and puts that above winger, I think Brady Shay is the guy that makes the most sense. And the most
everybody loves him but me.
I know, but it sounds like that's the guy. You know what I mean? It sounds like that is probably going to be the guy that everybody sort of knows this is going to happen, or that expects that this is going to happen.
The worst kept secret in the league. I mean,
right?
Tied with Lindholm.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's quite possible that they're looking at it that way in order to give Lowry a bigger hurdle and a little take pressure off of his development by not plopping him into the top four and just saying, okay, there's your residency. Go take it, kid. He played at stretches of the playoffs like he was never going to look back, and he was going to be Charlie McAvoy's new partner. But a veteran acquisition would push him back. And then make it more of a swing and hallmark situation. Yeah. Yep. And so, and that would fit the philosophy. The Bruins like puck movers. Brady Shay's a big body and he's a puck mover, and he's really good when his team has the puck. I don't think he's good enough in a top four role when the other team has the puck. That's my problem with the amount of money they're going to have to pay to get a guy like him at this juncture. So let's see what the contract is and how long of a term it is. And because if they're looking at him the way they looked at Hampus Lindholm and that kind of acquisition, then that would be antithetical to the development of Lowry right now. Lowry's almost as mercurial as Charlie McAvoy stepping into the playoffs, a bit ahead of schedule and being as impactful as he was. So while he's not going to not look back like Charlie McAvoy, it would seem like that was his moment where he became an NHL player.
I agree. And like Mick, he came in like he is so clearly and obviously the most offensively skilled defenseman that they have. As soon as he came on board, some of the things he was doing, what he could do with the puck, the way he saw the ice and the way he tried to make plays and the aggressive way he did things, like, and he had the ability to do it. The hands, the shot, the vision, the skating and the stick handling. Like,
to improvise from the point to take the puck low under pressure. It's really, really good. Really impressive.
And you could see, like, I think it was in the first round against Toronto, they started to try to rough him up towards the end of the series because I think they realized that he was being very effective and they were going to try to take him out because he was being a difference maker.
Well, when Florida played them in 23, I asked Paul Maurice about the Bruins breakout and the short passes and the puck support. And he said, no, he says, the thing that scares me about them is their 4-man attack. Yeah. And so Lowry is like, and at that time, Lindholm was really kind of that guy. Now it's Lowry. So he acknowledged Lowry without saying his name. That was really what makes the Bruins a threat to a team like his. Yeah. So you got to figure that the Bruins are really going to go forward in high octane with him. So I'm a little surprised if they don't go into the season that way and actually go and get a guy like Brady Shay. It wasn't on my radar, and people are talking about it more and more and more. So I guess I better start believing it. But but I don't like the idea, and I'm not in love with the player.
Yeah. Speaking of Maurice and the Florida Panthers forecheck, let's hope that the Bruins and Jim Montgomery were watching the playoffs in the Stanley Cup final and now realize that the stretch pass and the home run pass are the way to defeat that Florida Panthers forecheck, or at least counteract it and take some of its teeth away, because that seemed to be the only thing that any team could do against them.
And Bouchard made it as well as Dennis Weidman used to. He could thread the needle.
Well, that and having forwards that, like, that are all-world skill that can make you pay too and finish at the other end helps too. So, like, it'll be interesting to see if that was just a particular.
Even when 97 wasn't on the ice, they did it.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, Janmark did it a bunch of times.
Yeah, who knew? I mean, Janmark, he's been in the league a long time here, and I don't remember anybody ever identifying him as the next Yanni Gourde type pain in the ass presence that's going to really haunt an opponent. And how many GMs are kicking themselves in the butt walking down the street with every step, thinking, man, we had a chance at this guy. We had this guy. We didn't. How did we miss this?
Absolutely.
But he's really a good player.
Mick, have a good time in Vegas at the Sphere. Enjoy yourself. Don't have too much fun.
You don't mean the Sphere right here?
That's it. The big orb right there. Mick, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
All right. And everybody else out there, we'll see you at the rink.